it's obviously really distilled your own drive and your own purpose and forced you to kind of metamorphose into a very someone who is very on their purpose. Like I just turned 30 years old, and I am, yeah, even at 30 years old, most of the people who are my age don't really have that same distillation that you do at your young 21 years of age, right? A lot of people think, well, at 30, that's when you're.
Welcome to the Gentleman Success, Happiness, and Fulfillment Talk podcast, where we bring to you the most successful, happy, fulfilled gentlemen from around the world who have been able to conquer themselves, their life, their marriage, and their businesses. You will be learning from four-dimensional gentlemen who have cracked the code to the science of having it all. The question is, how can married entrepreneurs with kids become gentlemen, achieve true freedom, and build a successful, happy, and fulfilled life, marriage, and business? This show will give you the answer for that. My name is Alex Ramirez, and I'm your host, and you're welcome to the Gentleman Success, Happiness, Fulfillment Talk podcast. I say that I come from, I'm Mexican. I don't know if you can tell by how I speak and stuff. But I actually just learned how to speak English 3 years ago. 3 years ago, I couldn't speak more than 3 words in English without choking. So that's a cool thing. And I say that I come from a generational cycle of mediocrity, drug addiction, alcoholism, and broken families. And the reason I say that is because my father was a drug addict and alcoholic for the major part of his life for decades. And he had 8 or 9 different kids with 8 or 9 different women, right? So that's how he went through life, just doing drugs, alcohol, and having kids all over the place. That's what his dad did, right? Drug addict, alcoholic, broken families. And that's what his dad's dad did as well. And it's been going on for generations and generations. But when I reconnected with my dad, so he left when I was less than 1 year of age. I didn't grow up with him or anything, but I reconnected with him when I was 14. And when I reconnected with him, he gave me some advice. He said that if you wanted to be successful, happy, and fulfilled, that's what SHF means: success, happiness, and fulfillment. If you wanted to be successful, happy, and fulfilled, he said that you needed to become a gentleman, right? I have modern gentlemen here, gentlemen. And he said that the way you did that was by achieving freedom, true freedom. And the way you did that was by achieving four freedoms in a specific order, which he explained it the following way. He said, physical freedom is first, optimizing your body and your mind, taking care of yourself, loving yourself, and putting yourself first, right? That's physical freedom. Then he said the next one is emotional freedom. It's about mastering yourself. It's about knowing who you are, what you want, and where you're going. And once you have those two, once you've worked on those two, financial freedom is going to be pretty simple, right? Because, well, you've mastered yourself. You're confident. You know who you are. You know what you want. You know how to put yourself first. You love yourself. And financial freedom is going to be simple, not easy, but simple. Then you spend the next couple of years working on those 3 relentlessly, right? You make something out of yourself. You build a company that gives you a nice lifestyle that is successful. You are full of purpose. You're driven. You are confident with a lot of conviction. You know who you are, what you want, and where you're going, and you look and feel amazing, right? So now from this place, you can go and look for the woman that you're going to spend the rest of your life with, start a family with, build a family with, keep on growing your empire with, and spend the rest of your life with, right? That's sentimental freedom. That's being a husband and a father. So it's physical freedom, emotional freedom, financial freedom, and sentimental freedom in that specific order. And that is the key to become a gentleman and have true freedom, success, happiness, and fulfillment. That's exactly what he said. And then he said, the reason why most men fuck up is because they do things backwards, right? They're missing something within, and they try to fill it up with the wrong things, with drugs, alcohol, woman. They do things backwards. They, get someone pregnant. They become a husband and a father. And then because they now have to provide, they have to focus on their financial freedom. They spend all of the time here. They neglect their wife and their kids. Then they neglect themselves. They use this as an excuse to not work out, eat good or whatever. And they never get to find out who they truly are, what they truly want to do, and what the purpose is. And that's how most men end up fat, poor, ugly, alcoholic, and divorced, right? That's what happened to him, right? He did things backwards, as well as became a drug addict and alcoholic. He did it once. He fucked up once. And then he fucked up like 8 more times, right? And finally, after like decades of fucking up, I reconnected with him at 14. He gave me that advice, and I didn't listen, of course, right? So from 14 to 18, man, I was a drug addict and an alcoholic. I'm from this like border town from Mexico in the US, and it's not the best place to like grow up in, but and it's not an excuse, but I just got like sucked into my environment. I was looking for this sense of validation and approval, and this thing that I was missing from within. I wanted significance, and I filled that up. I tried to fill that up with drugs, alcohol from 14 to 18, right? Just became the like I wanted to be the best drinker, the best smoker, the one who did the most of everything. And that's what happened. And at 18, I got my girlfriend pregnant, right? Started going down the same path as my dad, his dad, and like all of these generations of mediocrity, drug addiction, alcoholism, broken family. And I got my girlfriend pregnant at 18, man. And I was like, I got scared. I was scared shitless. And the reason for that is because my mother had me at 15 years of age, 15. And she told me a story growing up, right? She said that if you had a kid at a young age, you were going to be a fuck up. You weren't going to amount to anything great. You were going to fail, and you weren't going to do anything with your life. So like that was her story. That was what she felt for having me at such a young age, right? But she told that story to me growing up, and I believed it, of course, right? So at 18, when I found myself getting my girlfriend pregnant, I was like, holy shit, like I'm going to be a fuck up. I'm going to all of that, right? And I was really scared. So me and my girlfriend decided to go with what seemed the easiest and fastest route at the time, which was abortion, right? We Googled it, how to like abort a baby and stuff. I didn't feel like I could go and ask for help to anyone for some reason. And we ended up coming across like a pill method, right? So we bought some pills. My girlfriend ended up taking like 40 some pills. On Google, it said that she was going to be in pain for like 2 nights and bleed everything out. And that's exactly what happened. She was in pain, she bled, and well, it worked, right? A month went by and she got her period just as she normally would. So we were like, okay, cool, it worked, right? Like that's what we wanted, right? Another month went by and she didn't get her period, and we were like, holy shit, like what's happening, right? Like we did this, you got her period, you weren't pregnant anymore, so now like you're not getting your period. So like what's happening? We bought a test, and she was pregnant again, right? So we did it again. We did the same procedure again. My girlfriend took more pills. She was in pain. She bled everything out, and it worked, man. Right. And another month went by. We were graduating from high school. Prom was going on. The dances and all of those things that go on in high school were going on. And my girlfriend was wearing like a tight dress. She didn't look pregnant. She didn't feel pregnant. Nobody knew that she was pregnant. We didn't know that she was pregnant because, well, the abortion attempts had worked. And then after graduating from high school, I was still that, like kid that was lost and, wanted to do drugs and party and purposeless, visionless, right? So that kid. And then from 1 week to another, I became the father of a premature baby that was born at 5.5 months of gestation. Not 9 or 8 or 7 or 6, 5.5 months of gestation, man.
Wow.
And it's because the abortion attempts hadn't worked, right? And holy shit, man, it completely shattered me. Like in a bunch of different ways, right? There was a lot of guilt and shame from like now I had a baby that was like this big, that was connected to a bunch of stuff at the hospital, at the NICU, in which I had previously tried to kill multiple times, right? So it was terrible. And then, in addition to like the limiting beliefs that I had and stuff, and yeah, it was like really painful. It was like the worst thing that ever happened to me at the time, but it turned out to be the best, right? It turned out to be the catalyst for my growth. It turned out to be like a blessing. It turned out to be what got me on the path of finding out who I am, what I want, where I'm going, and who I'm becoming, right? And it got me on the path of like stepping into my purpose and helping men, right? Starting a world movement, helping men become what I call a modern gentleman. And long story short, I'm married to my girlfriend, right? I didn't abandon my family. My daughter, man, is absolutely beautiful and healthy. Nothing is wrong with her. You wouldn't even believe it. And I like before that, I didn't believe in God. And like now, I don't know what else to call that other than a miracle. Like like a wake up call, like a fucking kick in the ass, because I was wasting my potential. And yeah, that's what happened. I went to long story short, I went to insurance. then I realized that insurance, like people who like it was harder to sell a $50 per month policy to a person than a $8,000 service to an insurance agency owner. From insurance, I started my digital marketing agency, and then in the last 3 years, I'm 21 right now, so that it's been 3 years. And in the last 3 years, I've invested over $150,000 on my self development and stuff. And from doing that, going, I don't know if you know who Gary J. White is, but there's a bunch of people who do the like body, being, balance, and business, family, fitness, focus, finance, right? Same message, different messengers. From being on like across, like through their stuff and just investing in myself, I was able to be like, holy shit, like this is, I'm meant to do this, right? And I decided to step into my purpose less than a year ago. And in this podcast, I interview what I call a modern gentleman. I interview men who are at a very advanced stage of their journey, men who have conquered themselves, their life, their marriage, their business. And the purpose for that is to motivate, inspire, and bless other entrepreneurs that are at an earlier stage of their journey with the tool sets, the mindsets, the skill sets, and everything necessary for them to collapse the time that it will take them to achieve that true freedom that they're after. And that's why I'm doing this, man.
Yeah, doing great work, man. Great work. Like really, people really need to hear these kind of messages, especially from someone like yourself. It's really rare for someone as young as you are to have those kind of intense realizations. And while what you went through is really intense thing, it's obviously really distilled your own drive and your own purpose and forced you to kind of metamorphose into a very someone who is very on their purpose. Like I just turned 30 years old, and I am, even at 30 years old, most of the people who are my age don't really have that same distillation that you do at your young 21 years of age, right? A lot of people think, well, at 30, that's when your life has got to be figured out. That's when you're married, you have the kids, and you have your business or your high-paying job or whatever. I mean, even in my circles, which is mostly people who are doing something, I would say that most people at 30 years old don't have it figured out. Like most men don't hit their stride until they're mid 30s, 40s, or even 50s sometimes, right?
Yeah. And recently, man, I invested into, I don't know if you're familiar with Peter Sage.
I'm not sure.
So he was a trainer for Tony Robbins for like over 15 years. And this guy has like ran multi-billion-dollar companies, like really was wise dude, right? And I just invested in his stuff. And so before a couple of months ago, just a couple of months ago, I felt like I was chasing something, right? To like prove myself, right? Like that's the race in which a lot of entrepreneurs are like find themselves in, right? Trying to like climb a mountain that they're probably going to get to the top of, right? And then by the time they get there, they're going to want to like throw themselves down because like it wasn't a mountain that they wanted to achieve. The other day, I heard this quote by Taylor Welch. He said, there isn't a worse thing than becoming successful at something that doesn't matter, right? So there's this trap that entrepreneurs are in which they think that $1 million is going to make them happy, and then when they get there, they're like, holy shit, I'm still like not happy. Like I don't feel fulfilled or happy or whatever, right? And they're like, oh, let me go and make two in case I miss the first one, and maybe two will make me happy. And then when they get there, they're wanting to make five. And that once they build a business, they're wanting to build another one because like they're like chasing stuff, right? To like prove themselves, to like validate themselves, to like for significance or whatever. And I used to feel like in a hurry a couple of months ago, like less than a year ago. And from like investing in Peter Sage, like that has changed a lot. And I stepped into what he calls the like third level of awareness. So in the first level of awareness, you're in like victim mode, right? Victim mentality. The mantra of those people are to me, right? Everything is happening to me. It's a very disempowering way to live. You're living reaction mode. You live in fear. And a lot of people, most people in the world are here in the to me, in the first level of awareness. Then the second level of awareness is the achiever mode, right? The buy me mode. And that's what like the majority of the personal development industry focuses on, right? It focuses on getting people from the to me mentality to the buy me mentality. It focuses on getting them to achieve. And the buy me, it's like everything is happening by me, right? That's where most entrepreneurs are in. And it's like they're pushing hard, right? I think everything is happening by them. They realize that nothing is going to fall out of the sky, and anything that they want, they got to go out and make happen by them, right? And then the third level of awareness is through me. And this is a level of awareness in which everything is happening like more effortless. It's in flow, right? Doors open before you even touch the doorknob. Um, and then one thing that you have to let go of and replace with in order to go from the second level of awareness into the third level of awareness is um, the need for control, right? And you got to replace that with a sense of knowing. And right now, this past couple of months, I've felt that way, and it's amazing. And I just wanted to mention that because, like you were mentioning how like people my age don't have everything figured out. Well, I don't have everything figured out, but I do feel successful, happy, and fulfilled, and like I feel like I have it all. Like I don't need anything, and to validate myself or anything. And then from this place, I can confidently say that I'll go and become a billionaire. Not because I think that when I become a billionaire, that will make me happy, or because I think that that will solve all my problems. It's just because of my potential and because of like the age that I have and the time span, and because like I'm going to die and I want to make sure that I make this a fucking awesome ride.
Yeah, man. It's really, the mindset is just such a huge thing, because you touched upon climbing the first mountain and just realizing that that's not the thing. That's
Mm-hmm.
something that so many people go through in different parts of their life. There's a great book that I'm partway through right now, actually. I think it's called The Second Mountain. I can't remember the name of the author, but if you just look up The Second Mountain, it's one of the popular ones there. But it's written by an older gentleman who really has just identified the second mountain. Like most people in their lives, whether you're an entrepreneur or you go through your career for your entire life, most people will reach a point where they realize they've climbed the first mountain, they've achieved whatever it is they want to achieve, and it's not everything, it's not giving them the fulfillment or whatever. And for the first part of your life, there isn't a wrong answer, right? If you're young and you need to make money, that's your first mountain. That's great. That's, at the time it's giving you fulfillment, and you're learning lots of things, and it's great, but that's probably not the thing that's going to carry you through for the rest of your life, right? So once you climb that first mountain, that is the magical question right there. That is, there's lots of pretty good partial answers out there, but there is no really good answer for how do you find that second mountain, that thing that gives you the fulfillment, that drives you, and will ultimately make you happy to wake up and just go to work in the morning on whatever it is you want to do, right? It's going to be totally different for every person in every different situation. And it really is the magical question, I think, of for people who are listening to this podcast, like that second mountain, that actually the thing that actually gives you fulfillment, it's not the easiest thing to go and identify, and it's going to be different at different points in your life.
Mm. And man, like you definitely gotta take care of like the money first. So there's a lot of so like the majority of the people that are going to be listening to this, young married entrepreneurs with kids, right? Um, they think that their main problem is like the money, right? And one of the things that I like to say is that, well, the majority of the times you don't have, like financial issues. You have personal problems. You don't have money problems. You have personal problems reflecting in your business. You don't have business problems. You have personal problems reflecting in your business. And in the majority of the cases, that is true. But like, like just for the hierarchy of Maslow's hierarchy of needs, right? Like you gotta take care of the money first. You gotta find a way to take the care of that and make that maybe your first mountain. Because once you have that, you will be able to like think and get out of fear and get out of scarcity. I mean, that's been my experience. So man, so like, what are you doing right now? And I started this podcast a little bit different than I usually do for some reason, but I don't know. Are you liking it?
Yeah, I mean, I love to hear your story and your background. I love how you're so authentic with sharing all the vulnerable pieces to your audience, because ultimately that's the things that's going to help people see in their own lives the different ways that they can grow from their own experiences, right? But yeah, I'm kind of in the process of that second mountain thing. So
Mm.
I've had an agency that helps people grow on Amazon. It just helps brands do different services on Amazon, and I've had that for about 6 years. and we grew to, 7 figures, 25 employees. And that whole experience was a great growth experience for me. I learned so many great skills, and I definitely became a more capable entrepreneur. And then also personally, it just forced me to address so many things in myself, and insecurities, and just, sharpness of the mind and all those things. But, over the past year or maybe even 2 years, it's kind of reached a point where it feels like I've climbed that first mountain. Like it doesn't, like, it's not like it's a giant company that is, I'm done and set for life. It's certainly not that lucrative, but it doesn't feel compelling to me anymore to double the size of my agency. Right. When I was still in the scrappy earlier years, that was motivation enough. And I knew that I was going to grow through that process, and that was motivating. But to me anymore, it's not really motivating. I'm happy with where it's at. I'm probably going to complete the process of selling it within the next year. Some talks of doing that, and I'm got to sort some things out. But I've started to get back into what I've always known I enjoy more, which is just coaching other entrepreneurs through the same thing. So not complete beginners, but people who have already reached a certain level of traction, people who I know they're already in, I don't want to say over their heads, but they have enough momentum that if they stopped, they would have to lay off employees, and they have expenses to pay. Right. So they're not the type of people who are like, should I try it? Should I get into it? Maybe I'll do it on the weekends. So like, no, it's a committed people. And so I really enjoy helping those types of people just through one-on-one coaching mostly, because to me, that's more personal. So that to me is my second mountain, because like that gives me so much more fulfillment. And I've tried the whole group coaching thing too, like a course and everything on a higher scale. And to me, I get so much more enjoyment. Maybe I'd make less money doing one-on-one coaching, but like to me, that's way more personal and more enjoyable. And ultimately, that's what I'm after at this stage in my life.
Cool. Awesome. And so how long ago did you realize, oh, there's got to be a second mountain. There's got to be more. How long ago did you realize that?
I mean, ultimately about a year ago. It was a slow transition. Like I went through a period where I was just kind of lost and didn't have the motivation to continue working, but I would just, keep trying to work on things and everything. And it had some negative effects on my business, because ultimately it's very difficult to force yourself to do something that you're just not motivated to do. Right. I'm sure most people listening to this podcast have worked a job before that they just had no desire to go to every single day in the morning. And it's very difficult to be a high performer in that kind of scenario. Right. So it took me a while to just realize, like, okay, so I'm not going to grow this business into double the size. I don't want to have 50 employees and do this whole crazy thing. It just doesn't excite me. And also, like, the extra amount of money doesn't excite me either. Right. That mountain is kind of over. So like that realization, just I probably could have gotten there sooner than I did, but it was also difficult to let go of the thing that I spent 6 years building and is kind of wrapped up in my identity too, like, and people know me as the Amazon guy, and it was a little bit difficult of a process to go through.
Yeah. And see, man, like this is stuff that people do not talk about. Like you're saying, like I got to the point in which doubling my company didn't really excited me, right? Like, and making even more money didn't really excite me, because you get to a point that it's not about money, that you got to find something within that like is more important, that gives you that fulfillment and that happiness, right? That gives you that drive. Because I was listening to a podcast the other day. I don't remember who it was, but he was talking about the alter ego, and how once he got to a certain point financially, financially, he lost his drive, because what drove him from the beginning as an entrepreneur was the fact that he was poor and he wanted money. That's what drove him. So once he got to, like, I don't know, $1 million per month or whatever, he like lost his drive, and he was like miserable and he was unhappy. And from there on, he came across this book called Alter Ego, in which he would step into this alter ego, right, that would drive him. But then that was exhausting. And then he talked about his story and how he had to like go on this journey to find his purpose. So like what do you take on that, man?
Yeah, I mean, it's been my experience that money is a great motivator up until a certain point, and that certain point is pretty low. Right?
Yeah.
Like when I was like trying to manifest my, you know, dream life and all this stuff, I set the bar ridiculously high. Like, it's like, I want, you know, I need at least $1 million a month and like all this kind of stuff. But you realize pretty quickly, once you start making, you know, 10, 20, $30,000 a month, it's pretty hard to spend more than 20 or $30,000 a month. Like, you have to really try. I mean, it depends on where you live, obviously. If you live in New York, then it's much easier to spend that much money. But like, realistically, unless you're flying to Paris freaking on the weekends and going and freaking renting Lambos, you know, every freaking 2 seconds and buying all this crazy stuff, you don't really need that much money. And I also noticed that, like, I got in a bit of a habit of buying a whole bunch of stuff. And it didn't make me any happier, right? Because I grew up in a, you know, not a poor family, but certainly there was not really extra money. You know, like, we had everything we needed, but like, you know, if I wanted to get this new thing, probably had to wait until Christmas or birthday or something, like 6 months later, you know. And so I had a bit of a scarcity mindset when it came to stuff, and I just started buying all this stuff. And it didn't make me at all happier. If anything, it actually made me a little bit less happy, because now I had all of these things. Like, at one point I owned 4 motorcycles, and just, you know, I love riding motorcycles, but just the maintenance of these motorcycles, you know, like every week or every 2 weeks, there'd be one of the motorcycles that needed to be brought in for maintenance. And, you know, then you got to pay the bill and like do, you know, it's a lot. Right. And it actually made it worse. Or like, I always dreamed of having a personal assistant, like someone who would just come and, you know, take care of laundry and do all this kind of stuff and everything. And then I got a personal assistant, and I very quickly, within a few months, realized I would rather be doing most of the stuff myself instead of dealing with this personal assistant. Because now it's like, instead of just doing the stuff, you know, you kind of have to manage this extra person, and they're kind of around and in your personal space a lot. Right. And so it was interesting to go through that process of like all of these things that I had dreamed up, that is like, oh, this is going to make my life so much better, didn't really make my life any better. And in some cases actually made it worse. And so ultimately I've realized that I don't really need any more than $10,000 a month to live a good, comfortable life, you know, and everything on top of that is just gravy, you know, for investments, for freaking, you know, whatever you want to do. Right. And so like, why do I need to set the goals of, you know, 8 figures, like, you know, 100 grand a month, if that's not going to actually add value to my life? Right. I'd be much better off doing something that I actually really enjoy doing and I get fulfillment from. And you can still make a lot of money doing those things. But I just got off of the track of most money at the expense of everything else, which is the track that I was on before, and more towards, okay, how can I still make good money, but do it in a way that I really want to be doing it and actually gives me joy and fulfillment.
Yeah, that's very important. So man, let's see. Let's change subjects a little bit, because I'm looking through your Instagram, and it seems like you've been you know, like having an awesome time. So I think are you in Bali right now?
Yeah. I've been living in Bali for the past 3 years.
Cool. So I'm thinking about, I don't know, like maybe next year, pulling the trigger on taking me, my wife, and my kid to live to Bali, and just like live there for like a week, for like, I don't know, like 6 months, a year, whatever. But like, my plan is to get my business to where it's like basically running on its own, and I only work 4 days per week, so that Friday through Sunday we go out and like do something, right? Like a specific, like every single weekend we would like do some kind of activity, like some kind of different activity. So I don't know, like it feels a little bit, it's something that I've just haven't done. Like, it's something that I've never saw grow up yet, you know, someone just like take off to another how do you call it, country. But it's definitely something that I want to do. It makes me a little bit nervous, but yeah, man, like, can you I don't know, like, tell me about your experience.
Yeah, you'd love it, man. So like, I know a lot of guys like you who have kids and they have an online business, but they don't want to do it because of the kids and the family. But Bali is great for having little kids and a family. Like, it's freaking awesome. Like, the amount of stuff to do with kids out here is insane. There's so many businesses set up for like cool kids summer camps and like week-long, surf camps that the kids do all this cool stuff for going camping in the mountains and stuff. Like that kind of stuff is, I would say, even more available here than most places in the United States, just because of the nature of Bali. It's just a beautiful location where there's all this awesome stuff to be doing. So it's actually a great place to come with your family and come hang out and live. We got the co-working spaces out here. There's probably a solid 10 co-working spaces just in my area in Canggu, which is kind of the the popular expat place. Lots of nice restaurants, great healthy restaurants, big surf community. There's great gyms here. Like my gym has also an ice bath and a sauna and
Cool.
hot tub and all that stuff. So it's just a really great place. Like I actually kind of stumbled into Bali after living in a place that wasn't very conducive to all this stuff. I was living in Cebu City in the Philippines, which is also a nice tropical place. It's very close by to Bali, but it just didn't have this community of people that were all just focused on building online businesses, co-working spaces, and healthy restaurants and the gyms and stuff like that. And Bali really has attracted a very large and interesting expat community, and a lot of the locals too.
Sorry for the interruption. If you're an aspiring, established coach, course creator, author, and speaker, I want to extend an invitation to check out my free training on the podcast Cloak Track Framework by clicking on the link in the description of this podcast. On this training, you're going to learn how combining podcasting with a rare concept that very few people know about called the Cloak Track can help you build a multi-million-dollar network of successful people who can become your clients, put you in front of hundreds of your ideal clients with your message, coaching, courses, and books, help you become a best-selling author, get you booked to speak on stages, or even making an extra $237,600 in the next 6 months. Click on the link of the description of this podcast to learn about the 4 simple steps to make this work. Step number 1 is alignment. Aligning who you're trying to be, what you're trying to do, your goals and purpose with building your podcast so that podcasting is a vehicle that helps you achieve your goals. Step number 2 is leveraging the Cloak Track to find an unlimited supply of your ideal podcast guest. Step number 3 is leveraging the Cloak Track to close an interview with anyone, no matter how rich, famous, or out of your league they may seem. And step number 4 is the content machine, which is the key to tapping into other people's audiences. These are the 4 steps to making the podcast Cloak Track Framework work, and I'm not going to hold anything back on this training. So click on the link in the description of this podcast, go and check it out. And once you've done that, if you feel like this would help, we also have a complimentary, free, absolutely free alignment call to get you started and show you exactly how to implement everything. Get access to the training right now, and I hope you enjoy the rest of this episode. Bye-bye.
This very health and personal development driven community. Like you can go to so many different alcohol free parties, or ecstatic dance, which is the a big social thing here in Bali. It's not so popular in other parts of the world, but it's a unique place, man. It's great.
You sold me, man. So man, let's see. So, you build a 7-figure business, living in Bali, living from your computer. If you go to Danny's Instagram, you'll see a bunch of pictures of him having fun with his girlfriend and with things places that look like paradise and stuff. So were you always like that, or what got you let's go back right in your life. Let's go back now to your origin story, and how come were you able to do this? And most people, how come you were able to do something that most people just dream of?
Yeah, and it's funny too, because a lot of people look at my Instagram now or something like that, and they just assume that I was just always someone who just was able to achieve things and do what I want. Absolutely not the case. So it's so funny. Maybe at the lowest point of my life, when I was the most depressed, was when I was maybe about 16 years old in high school. And a lot of that depression was due to just being lost in life in a lot of different ways. I really looked at the idea of having a 9-to-5 career until you're 55 and then, collect your paycheck every day. I saw that whole prospect as being depressing because I thought that was the only option. I grew up in a very blue collar kind of family. I didn't realize that, starting a business was really even an option. I certainly didn't have any money to do that. And then also with women too, at that age, I really struggled with being able to date the type of woman that I wanted to date, and I always kind of had a strong mindset. I didn't want to just settle for, just any random woman. I wanted to have like a really beautiful relationship and everything like that. And it just wasn't working out for me in the beginning. I just get like rejection after rejection. And it just led into a place where I was smoking lots of marijuana. I was smoking cigarettes every day, and drinking lots recreationally, parties, and I just kind of fell in with the wrong crowd of people. But it was really the thing that really brought me out of that was just really diving into a passion. And that's changed over the years, but like just really putting all my energy into a passion really lifted me out of that depression and got me going. So the first thing was drumming, which up until that point, I had been drumming for maybe 5 years already. But then I started drumming in metal bands. I used to love heavy metal and death metal and all this crazy music. And then I just got really deep into that community until the point I was playing in like 3 different bands, and I was living in a house with that was like the big party house for all the band members in the town that I lived in, and that was great. That gave me a lot of purpose, and I was excited about my life again.
Belonging,
right? Yeah, just like belonging to something instead of having the emptiness of of just nothing. And then that confidence allowed me to have more confidence with women as well. And then also it was around the time where like online like game, like the pickup artist sort of community was starting to gain traction, right? So like this information on the internet was becoming available, like how do you become a high value man who is actually desirable to women, and like how do you talk to women, how do you deal with women and stuff like that. And that was incredibly valuable to me as someone who had a lot of heartache and rejection from women at that point, which was very frustrating. So kind of the combination of the extra confidence and some of that information just really turned things around for me at that time, and I just gained a lot more confidence. Started dating the type of woman that I wanted to date, and that built again. And then it shifted more into longboarding, which was maybe took up 10 years of my life in total of just downhill skateboarding. You guys have probably seen the video of people ripping down mountain roads on the big skateboards and sliding for the corners and stuff like that. That was me hardcore for the next 8 or 10 years. And for the final couple of years of that, I was actually full on with that. That's all I did was longboarding, and I would make a little bit of money from sponsors, a little bit of money from making videos, and just enough to live in a van and go travel around the world. I traveled to, maybe 10 or 12 different countries for racing, and had a lot of really great experiences doing that. And again, that built my confidence again, because when I started longboarding, I was a nobody. I was a nobody. I moved to the Vancouver, the city with the most professional longboarders at the time, and I was everyone else in that city was better than me. I was not very good compared to them. But like over the years, just focus and dedication and working a lot on my skills and just putting my full effort into it. By the end of it, I was in the final heat with 2 ex-world champions at the time. And I remember that being a pivotal moment for me, where I realized after all these years of grinding and putting my full effort into it, I was there on the start line of this race with 2 ex-world champions right next to me in the final heat of the race. And like that to me was the moment where I realized, like, wow, I did it again. Like the thing that I just really envisioned many years ago was happened. So like after kind of going through that process a couple times, it just gave me a lot of confidence. And at that point too, like I was also ready for the next thing. That this was maybe when I was 24 years old, 25 years old. I was ready to stop doing longboarding, because I didn't see myself doing that into my 30s, right? I saw some of the older guys, and there's no money in longboarding. Like the very best guys in the world in longboarding they're not making any good enough money to raise a family and buy a house and do all this stuff. They're making enough money to travel around and, drink beers in their freaking van and stuff like that. So that was fun for my early 20s, but I knew it wasn't what I wanted to continue doing. And that's kind of when the switch happened into online business, which is it's an interesting transition that I had. It was kind of forced, but also, it had been sitting around for a while. I've been listening to lots of podcasts. Smart Passive Income by Pat Flynn, like a classic one. That podcast was basically just exploring lots of different online business models. He would have on people who are affiliate marketers, all sorts of stuff, e-commerce and everything. So I just got familiarized with that, and I had it in the back of my head. I'm going to start this online business. So I can just have the the financial freedom, location independence, and all this kind of stuff. But I didn't really know where to start. But it was one event in my life that really just forced me to just choose that path and go with it. And that was one of my final big longboarding trips in 2016. And I was in the Philippines competing in a race down this road. And in the Philippines, they just don't really close the roads as much as they should. Like usually in a longboard race, you close the road and there's no traffic on the road. But for some reason, there was a motorcycle coming up the track while we're coming down. There's 4 riders like taking up the whole road, just coming down. And so this motorcycle had to swerve off the road to try to avoid all of us. But he swerved right in front of me, like cutting me off, and I had to jump off my board while I was going maybe 70 kilometers an hour. This motorcycle's coming up at maybe 50 kilometers an hour. So it's a really near miss, and I, slid out and luckily didn't get too hurt, but it forced me to really look at my life direction. Like, hey, I don't want to keep, I almost just died on this remote island in the Philippines. This island didn't even have a real hospital. It would have taken me 12 hours to take a ferry over to the nearest actual hospital in a real city. And it just was a real inflection moment. Like, wow, like I almost just died at 24 years old and never got to start this online business that I wanted to start. And so like that was a kick in the ass I needed. Like, I'm just gonna get home from this trip. I'm gonna just put my effort into this thing and I'm gonna make it happen.
Cool, man. So there's this common thread that I see, right? So like drumming, like any instrument, is not easy to, just like start playing and get really good at, right? Longboarding, I bet that it's not something easy to like start doing and just all of a sudden get really good at and be competing at a high level. Business is not something easy that you just start doing and then all of a sudden you build to seven figures. So how come like the common thread is that, right? Like you've been able to build all of those things to like to a pretty high level. So like what do you think are the traits, man, that have allowed you to like do that? Like because a lot of people can't even stick to one thing and like make anything out of it, right? And like you've been able to do that multiple times with multiple very difficult things. So like what do you say? What do you say is what got you there?
Well, I think the one big thing that was common amongst all 3 of those situations, and really anything in my life that I've gotten good at, was a vision for where I wanted to go with that, right? When I was drumming, I was inspired by, amazing drummers like Neil Peart and, Joey Jordison, like these famous drummers who I'd see on videos and listen to in my records and stuff like that. They inspired me like, wow, I want to play drums like that. That would be so cool. Right. And then like, as I got older playing the drums, like that vision shifted more to like, I want to be a professional drummer. Like I want to go on tour and I want to be in the studio and I want to do that for a living. And like, that was my vision. And that is so important because especially with something like drumming, it's very tedious to become a good drummer, right? You have to practice these rudimentary techniques over and over and over, many hours, dozens of hours, hundreds of hours on these very rudimentary techniques. And that's the only way you really become a world-class drummer. I was never a world-class drummer, but I got pretty good. And so the only way to get yourself to do something like that is if you have a compelling vision for where that's going to take you, because people don't do hard things unless there's something really compelling them to do the hard thing. And like, that can be the whip, like, you're going to get fired from your job, like that works. But, over a long enough period of time, like we're talking about drumming, I was doing for like 10 years or something like that. The whip's probably not going to work for 10 years, at least not for a person like me anyways. Like I just can't do it. So, yeah, I think having the compelling vision that is strong enough, that inspires you enough to put in the work and then put in the work even when you don't want to do the work, because you're just so compelled by this vision.
Yeah, it all starts with vision, man. So there's this group that I really like. It's called the King's Council. I don't know if you've ever heard about it. King's Council.
Oh, not sure.
No. So they talk about also like 5 areas. They describe it a little bit different, like physical, mental, spiritual, and stuff like that. They talk a little same message, different messenger, and they talk about everything is Bible related. Everything is like based on Jesus, right? And like everything that they teach is based on the blueprint that supposedly the Bible has. And like they teach how like it all starts with vision, right? Like in the first day, God created light, right? And light is like vision, right? Like sight. So yeah, man, 100% vision. And like I think that's something really important. The clarity on like where you're going, something that a big compelling vision. Tony Robbins talks about it. A lot of people talk about it, and it's something that it's like in my experience has been very important, very crucial, like to like have that drive and have that motivation to like keep on moving forward. And then another thing, like you said, like the whip, right? So get clear on not only get clear on like the vision, the big compelling vision that is going to be driving you forward, but also get clear on like what is the opposite of that, right? So like what would be the opposite of ending here and like your big compelling vision, and then let that, not only because we humans, right, are driven by either pleasure or fear, right, pain. And like if you get clear on your big compelling vision, you'll be, driven by pleasure. You'll be like wanting to chase that pleasure because of this grand future that awaits you. But if you get clear on that and then you just switch it and you get clear about the complete opposite, you'll be driven now by pain, right? Which is something you alluded to. So yeah, great insight, man. And so you always had a vision, right? You always like knew what you wanted. And is there anything else?
Yeah, well, you brought up the really important point of pain. And if we're looking at it from a human psychology standpoint, like the psychological literature is pretty clear that pain is a bigger motivator for humans than pleasure is. Humans are much more likely to take action on running away from pain than they are towards moving towards pleasure, right? The carrot and the stick is a powerful one. And I've found that to be very true in many points of my life. Like drumming, for example, the pain that I was running away from was that empty feeling that I had, like that, depression of just being disillusioned by the whole 9 to 5 and working a career till 55 and everything. And, just having the frustration with the girls that I wanted to date and stuff. That's the pain that I was running away from with drumming. The drumming was my way out of that. Right. And with my business too, the pain that I was running away from was the realization that I'm going to just be a bum if I continue to do longboarding and make no money and just live in a van with a bunch of people who smoke weed and drink beer all the time. Like that was the pain that I was running away from then. And so if I'm being honest, I probably throughout most of my life have been driven more by running away from the painful thing than running towards the thing that is the vision that I'm looking for. I think they're both important for sure, but I also think it's important that a lot of the personal development stuff out there just leaves out that whole second part about the pain. They just say that like, yes, like you just need your vision and that's going to draw you towards it. But I mean, equally, I think we need to look at, be aware of the thing that is painful that we're pushing away, because for me, that's where the real deep motivation comes from in these life shifting situations.
And the key is being aware of it, right? Being aware of it and using it to your advantage. That's exactly how I learned how to speak English, man. And like 3 years ago, I would literally stand in front of the camera. I haven't changed cameras ever since because I don't know, it's going to be like a lot of work, I feel like. But I would stand in front of like the same camera to like want to shoot a video or something, and I would literally start sweating and shaking, and like I couldn't speak more than 3 words without choking. And I had like an immense amount of fear of like standing in front of the camera. And it was because of, like fear of failure, fear of what people might think, fear of like being judged, fear of like not being approved, not being validated. Right. So like it was that kind of fear. But then, I came across this topic that we're talking about like setting, like, why is it that I'm trying to do videos? Like, what is my end goal? Like, what is my vision? So I got clear around that. And then, I also came across the topic, the of getting clear on the complete opposite. So if I know that like doing videos, standing in front of the camera and speaking and doing this content is going to get me to my vision. So now like I attached pleasure to like that thing that I was procrastinating on, right? So to that thing that before caused fear. But then it got more powerful when I attached pain to like not doing, right? Because I would literally every single day, I had a ritual of visualizing myself doing videos and achieving my goals, right? So I attached doing videos, standing in front of the camera and just speaking confidently. And I would attach that, I would visualize myself achieving my goals. And then I would also visualize myself not doing it. So like I would literally visualize myself getting in front of the camera and being like, oh no, you know what? I'm not going to do this. And then I would visualize myself being in the complete opposite, which was fat, poor, ugly, alcoholic, mediocre. and everything that I don't want. So I did that exercise every single day until all of a sudden I'm making videos on Facebook live every single day. So you mentioned like consciously, like being aware, because once you're aware, you can use that on your advantage. And like it worked for me.
Oh yeah. And visualization, I think, is so important too, especially for an entrepreneur, because really, like an online entrepreneur, especially, there's 10 million different directions you can go. Maybe it's a little bit easier if you're starting a bar or a restaurant. They're a little bit more defined business models. I don't have any experience there, but like at least in the online world, you just like even a software that does something, you can choose a software that costs $10,000 a month or one that costs $10 a month. And you're going to need a different one at different stages of your business. And if you don't have the vision for like what type of business you're trying to build, like where you're trying to go, and are you going to have double the employees in the next couple of months or not, you're going to make a lot of bad decisions that are going to come back to haunt you in time and money later down the road. So that vision component is so important in business, and not only just for where you're going in business, but what you were saying about having the correct mindset to even get you through each situation. So important. Like I remember when I used to meet people in person for business meetings or go to business networking events and things like that, I was pretty nervous, right? And like I'm a pretty sociable guy, but like I would still get nervous, right? I still feel the nerves, and so I would visualize right before stepping into this coffee meeting or whatever it was. I'd visualize things going well. I'd literally close my eyes and just visualize them being really happy to see me, like shaking my hand, actually visualize them smiling. And then I would visualize the result that I was looking for. It's like if it was closing a business deal, then I would envision them shaking my hand. It's like, all right, deal, let's do it. $20,000 or whatever the deal is. Like actually just try to visualize all the details of that. And it had a pretty big effect on how my energy was during that engagement. Instead of my energy being kind of nervous and trying to get through the nerves, I'd come into it with lots of confidence, and like you can feel when the other person in the interaction feels that from you, right? Like they just instantly are more relaxed, and you get along much more easily. They're not as their guard is not as up anymore, and your interaction actually is more likely to go well.
Yeah, because you've been there, right? In your mind, you've been there before in your mind. Right. So there's a lot of athletes like Michael Jordan and, a lot of athletes that I can't name their names, but they used visualization, and like they practice hundreds of times, but then they visualize themselves hundreds of times as well. So like at the end of the day, they were at that given moment that they knew they were going to be in, like thousands of times more than any other like player out there. So yeah, it's a very powerful tool, man. And the reason it works is because like you can use it intentionally or not, right? But you're always using it, right? Either for good intentionally or for bad, but you're always using it, right? Like your mind doesn't know the difference between like a joke or what's real. So that's why, like when you tell yourself, I'm a loser, like your mind doesn't know if it's a joke or if it's real. And like most of the time, that's what you're going to get. You're going to get results that make you feel like a loser, right? But if you like take charge of that and you intentionally use it, instead of telling yourself loser, you tell yourself like winner, all of a sudden you'll see yourself like a winner. So,
oh yeah. Well, sports is a great example of that because it's probably the clearest example of when that can go wrong too, because our default mind really is critical. And I went through a bad period in my longboard racing career, like back in 2014. It was my first big international trip to Europe, and I was doing the whole European circuit, competing in all these races around Europe. And I had just put all this pressure on myself. Like, this is my big chance. Like, I got to perform super well. And I just put so much mental pressure on myself that every time I would make a mistake, I would just mentally just berate myself over it. And I would just feel so bad about it. Like I remember, like crashing in a race heat or something, and then I'm out of the race and I would feel like I wanted to cry, like that's how much emotion I had wrapped up into it. And it was affecting my performance really badly. And like, I would be on the start line for a race and I would be like, so like amped up, like, oh, I have to do well. And it would make me perform so much worse. And I just started to bomb my race heats. And so I kind of realized the problem, like on the way home from that trip, on the airplane, I remember reading this book called Relentless by Tim Grover. I'm pretty sure he's a guy who was a personal coach for Michael Jordan and, you know, some other really famous guys, Kobe Bryant, I think.
Yeah.
And he was talking all about the psychology of performing well in sports. And I realized I was making the mistake of essentially rehearsing my failures, right? Because I'd be sitting there like preparing for this race heat, and it's like, oh, like this corner, I can't mess this corner up. Like I've been messing this corner up in practice, and like I can't mess this up. I have to do this right, you know. And I'm basically, what I'm doing is visualizing myself messing it up over and over again, right? So guess what happens? I was messing it up.
You get what you focus on, right? So we're almost out of time, and I finished my podcast with 5 questions. So can I go ahead and ask you the first one?
Yeah, sounds good.
So, man, this is going to be really interesting. So, man, before I ask you the questions, though, it sounds like you've lived a lot, man. You've had a lot of experiences. You mentioned a couple of countries. You mentioned a couple of even continents and stuff. Really quick, how that's pretty rare. Like, even for like people like young people. So like, what's your take on that? What do you have to say about that?
Yeah, cool. Well, and so to me, it felt natural because it's an interesting thing. Like, I've always been dissatisfied with the status quo for my entire life. Like, even from like when I was like 6 years old, I started jumping bicycles and I started getting into extreme sports, and like eventually just regular sports just stopped being fun. I did soccer and basketball and volleyball and all these other regular sports, but I just was always an adrenaline junkie. And that was weird, right? Most kids were like, what? It's like, you're going to hurt yourself. That's crazy. And like, but to me, that was just what I preferred to do. And then same thing with jobs, right? I just was never satisfied with just regular jobs of any kind. It wasn't exciting for me to be like an engineer. Like, just the idea of having the same job for my whole life is just so crazy to me. It's just totally off the table. And the things that I've been into, I've always been into like extreme metal music, death metal and heavy metal and all this kind of stuff, or in like, downhill skateboarding, a pretty obscure, dangerous sport, right? So I've always been attracted to the kind of more odd things. So I think it's really just natural that I am continuing that through my adulthood. Just, online business is kind of the weird place for the people who don't fit into the normal societal framework, right? So it makes sense that I would come to a place like this. So while it does seem outside the norm, that's just kind of the person I've always been from a very young age. So it's not surprising to me, but I can see how other people can look at it that way.
Yeah. And I'm gonna start doing that, man. Like this upcoming year, I've already decided it. I'm gonna go off to like Bali, or maybe Bali, but maybe some other place, just to like experience stuff every single weekend by working. Like, I'm gonna work 4 days per week, and from Friday to Saturday every single weekend, I'm going to like experience something new. So I'm excited about that, man. I'm also dissatisfied with the status quo. So yeah. So man, the first question is, what is one piece of advice, like what would you, if you could give your 20-year-old self some advice, right? Like, not change anything or redo your life. No. Just like give your 20-year-old self some advice. What would that be?
21-year-old self. Yeah, I was trying to think of where I was when I was 21. Yeah. So 21, I guess I had just moved to the big city and was getting more into longboarding and kind of shifting away from drumming and the metal kind of stuff. I would just say to myself, man, like, you are absolutely on the right path, but letting go of all of the old vices and people in your life that don't serve you anymore is a part of that growth, and it's necessary. That kind of held me back for a while there, and it was a tough thing for me to deal with at the time. Just really completely changing the people I surrounded with, changing my behaviors, like not drinking and not smoking and all these kind of things. It was tough, so yeah. I would just reassure myself that's the right path, man. You don't want to be the freaking rock star that dies at 27, the fucking everyone remembers, but they lived a miserable life,
Yeah. So do you feel like it was like the attachment to your past identity? So like you were in a new chapter of your life, but like you knew you had to go through there. But then also you had like this feeling of, oh, but like, I'm that guy. Was that it? Yeah,
it was a complete shift of identity. So at that moment, and really other moments in my life where I've had to really shift my identity, it feels like you don't really know who you are. You have to like distance yourself from your old friends and then just go put yourself in other situations where you don't have any friends and you need to make new friends, and you're the weird new guy who nobody knows. And you're not very good at the thing. Like I was very good at drumming, and people respected me for being a good drummer. And then now I'm going deep into the longboarding thing, and everyone's better than me, and I'm losing at all the races, and like, it's a totally big identity shift. So that's the thing for me.
Cool. Awesome. So let's see. The second question is, what is one mindset shift that has allowed you to get to where you are right now? What is one mindset shift that you've had that you can share that has allowed you to get the success that you have right now?
Yeah. That's a good question. I would say, and the one, it's still the most important one. And it's also possible to flip back and forth from this one. And I have a few times over the years, is just the mindset that the mental state and current mindset is just the one biggest factor in how happy you're going to be in your life, how much you're going to be able to achieve in your life, how effective you are at your work, and also in other areas of your life and your relationship and everything like that. And what I mean by that is that not doing all the things that I need to do to keep my mind in a healthy and good shape, it very quickly will start to go off the rails, and I'll start to, eat unhealthier foods and start to like slack off more, or like play video games or like something. Right. And so for me, it's very important to very consistently do my morning meditation, to visualize, to journal, to make sure I'm going to the gym and doing ice bath and all these things. And like very, very quickly, within the span of maybe 1 week, if I take an entire week off from all of this stuff, I'm right back at square one monkey brain, right? Which is like, I kind of want to go get a chocolate bar, or like, and then you start to give into these kind of monkey brain impulses. So that's one that I just, that was a big shift for me in my 20s, but it's also something that I realize now needs to be maintained every single day, because it's just as easy to flip that switch back in the other direction.
Okay, I got it. Yeah. So like all those habits that you have as as a successful entrepreneur that made you a successful entrepreneur, all of a sudden you like let go of the gas, and then you find yourself back to like unhealthy stuff, right? Unhealthy habits. So you mean that you got to get back to like your successful habits? Is that what you mean?
Yeah, successful habits, it goes deeper than just habits. It's also about the kind of decisions that you're making in your business. So like a lot of decisions that I make in the business are things that have a very high amount of uncertainty, right? You can never be certain about most things, big decisions you're making in your business. And so when I'm in this mindset, when I haven't been doing all of these things to make sure my mindset is good, visualizing what I want, and just having the confidence and all these kind of things, then I start to make poorer decisions in the business, or I start to become less capable of dealing with stressful situations that show up in the business. And those are certainties, right? It is certain you're going to run into uncertainties and stressful things in your business. So yeah, I just think overall, that's probably the one biggest lever that you as an entrepreneur can pull, is just making sure that your mind is maintained by doing whatever it is you need to do to make sure that your mind is in the right state to be a high performer, right? You can put in 12 hours and have a poor mindset, and you're going to get way less done than if you do 8 hours with, rock solid mindset, and you're just making good decisions and you're clear headed.
Yeah, this is really valuable, man. So what are some of those things that you do to like stay on track with your mindset?
Well, the big ones for me, good sleep, exercise, of course. Those are kind of the big ones. And then probably the next most important one is visualization, just visualizing the positive, because I find for me, the default of my brain is to visualize things negative, right? I'm thinking about what can go wrong, and I'm thinking about, what did go wrong in the past. So that's the default. So the only way to get around that default is to visualize good things consistently. That's kind of the big ones. And then smaller ancillary ones on top of that is just making sure social life is good, and doing ice bath and sauna, I find really just kind of help put the cherry on top of all that for me.
Same. Yeah, same. so before, when I like started my entrepreneurial career, for some reason I thought that sleeping 4 hours was cool. Right. So like now I like prioritize my 8 hours of sleep. I work out every single day. I sweat every single day. I take my green smoothie every single day. I meditate. I take cold showers most days, like 5 times per week. Sauna. So yeah, same here, man. Awesome. And it's part of like physical freedom, which is like learning how to love yourself and take care of yourself, right? So yeah, that's cool. Let's see the second question. Let's say mindset map, man. So clarity. So we talked a little bit about clarity, about like knowing who you are, what you want and stuff. So do you have any piece of advice, any tactic, strategy, tool, or whatever that would help anyone out there be more clear, have more clarity in their life?
Yeah, so I'm going to say two things here. So the first one I think is for everybody, which is just journaling. So I have a daily journaling practice. I just will open up Notion, which is just, your average like Evernote kind of thing. And I'll just journal stream of consciousness, whatever's on my mind. I'll just kind of get that out and try to get a little bit of clarity. And whenever there's something in my life that is like, it's unresolved, and I know it's unresolved when it's something that keeps bothering me over the course of, many days or even weeks. And it's just, it's keeps coming up, but then it's, it never gets resolved. And so those kind of things I'll spend a longer period of time journaling on, maybe, and come back to it over the course of several days, maybe. So that one's for everyone. The second part of that is not for everyone. You have to, be in the right headspace. You have to have the right attitude towards things, and, make a decision with your own body, is psychedelics. So again, warning on that too, the legality of different psychedelic substances is different in different countries. So that's a decision you have to make yourself, or go to a country where it is legal, right? But there's something about different psychedelics, like mushrooms or ayahuasca, for example, that are popular ones that you can do. And LSD research is, on depression and people who have very hardcore addictions is very positive. It really, because what they do, and it does the same thing whether you are addicted to heroin or you're just looking to get some clarity in your own life, is they really force you to look at things that have happened in your life or unresolved things, and just come to some kind of clarity about them. So like, I'll give you an example of a plant medicine ceremony. That's probably the one people are talking about a lot the most, like ayahuasca ceremonies. It has a way of just showing you things in a way that's almost like, this is the right answer, like this is the wisdom. So like, I'll give you an example. Like a really powerful moment that I had on that was with my family. So like, I've been living over here in for like 3 years, and I'm thinking about like, do I want to like raise kids and have family in Canada around my parents or something like that, or like, do I not want to do that? And like, I've been fine with like seeing them on Zoom calls and stuff like that. But then I had a moment of clarity in a ceremony that like, my parents are not going to be alive forever, right? And it's like, what if I had, get to an older age and I just have all of this regret? Like, will I regret like not having my kids grow up around their grandparents and things like that? And like, those are the kind of questions that like, they don't usually come up unless you're really going deep on something. And so they have a way of showing you things that you probably wouldn't have thought about before. So again, not for everyone, but for me, that's been the most powerful tool for sure.
And I think psychedelics have been, like they have played some part of, they have a little bit of responsibility when it comes to like the clarity that I have on like my life, my purpose, what I'm doing. I have this obituary, like when you're going to die, like how you want to be remembered and stuff, like super deep, man, super detailed. It's almost scary. And like, it's really big. Like what I want for my life is really big, right? That's what I said earlier, that I'm going to be a billionaire. And that came when I was like high on mushrooms and LSD at the same time. And then I have this other thing, my Wikipedia page, right? So like, just like imagine you visualize yourself like someone searching for you on Wikipedia, like that Danny Carlson, and then you come up, right? So like, what do you want for your Wikipedia page to say? And I have my Wikipedia page, like again, just like my obituary, full of detail, really amazing, like what I'm going to be doing, insane amounts of clarity that give me like direction. And I did that in like a session, right? Like in one of those sessions. So definitely not for everyone, man. Like holy shit, like definitely not for everyone. But yeah, pretty useful tool. So yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that, man. It's something that it's never been brought up in one of these interviews. So cool. Thanks for that.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a powerful one for sure. I just want to say too, it is possible. There are techniques to get yourself into those psychedelic states without taking anything. Absolutely, but it's just a lot more advanced. You have to learn a lot of techniques and spend a lot of time, understanding and practicing them. Right. These substances are a shortcut. Right. So it's I just wanted to point out there's multiple options there to kind of get those kind of experiences.
Cool. Awesome, man. Mindset map motion. So what is one habit that you have that you think has contributed to your success? I think you mentioned a few, but yeah, go ahead.
Emotions.
No. Motion habits, like a habit, like taking action.
Oh, like a habit, a daily habit of taking action. Like, okay, that's an interesting question, actually. Because it changes quite a bit. Like over the course of the growth of my agency, the habits that have necessarily had to change quite a lot, because at certain stages I just have to do different things. So at one stage, it was the habit that helped me out the most was completely blocking out all messages until 11 p.m. and just taking that morning period of about 7 a.m. until 11 a.m. to focus on the parts of my business that were actually going to drive things forward, on projects of like building systems or whatever was the most important thing at the time. And then all the other distractions delayed until 11 a.m. Wouldn't even touch my phone or email or anything. And that was great. But then over the past years since I've been in Bali, it's been waking up and doing calls. So just important calls like sales calls or like other kind of things in the morning, because that's the time of day that lines up with North American time and the people that are over there. So really it's going to change at different points of your business, right? Because you have to focus on different things. But for me, just having some sort of structure helps immensely, because I've gone through some periods, like in between periods of where things are shifting in the business, of where the structure is kind of broken before I make the new structure. And it's just too chaotic, right? Then I end up like going into Slack messages for something, and then I'll be over like trying to start a project, and then I have a call starting in 20 minutes, and then just can't really get anything done like that. So exactly, as long as they're revisiting the structure, I think that's good.
Yeah, that's a really good one, because I'm actually right now at a point in my life, in my business, that man, I'm going to be having 400 interviews by the end of this year. I originally said it was going to be 200, but in the past 6 months that I started my podcast, that like this is like I hit like 70 interviews pretty fast. I have a really cool system. So I'm going to be hitting 400 interviews to like build a massive network. And then I'm going to be doing an event and, inviting all of those people. But so like right now I find myself doing interviews, right? Like 3 interviews, 4 interviews, during the day. And like, I'm just exhausted. And like, it's really hard to shift gears from like doing an interview and then like thinking about something, or like doing an interview again and then going and like trying to like create some kind of system, or like it's really hard. So yeah, I get what you're saying. And like, it's really hard to like, I feel all around the place, messages, the team, calls, interviews, and it's crazy. So yeah, I'm right now, I'm actually tomorrow, I already blocked like 2 hours of my time to really think, how do I want to structure my days, right? Because moving forward, I'm going to like, this is how it's going to be my days are going to be look like. So like, yeah, I need some structures. That was incredible. That was an incredible piece of advice. Thank you. The next question is mindset map motion measure money. So I have this really cool framework. If you want money, there's 4 things that you got to get right. You got to get your mindset right. You got to get your map right, which is clarity. You got to get your map where you are, where you want to go, how to get there. You got to get your motion right, taking action, and you got to get your measure. So what do you think about measuring and tracking, man?
Oh, I mean, it's absolutely key. And this is one that did not come naturally to me and still does not come naturally to me. I had to force my way through creating all these measuring and tracking systems and everything like that. And luckily now we have an accountant that deals with most of that kind of stuff. But like, it's essential. It's the thing that especially a lot of first-time entrepreneurs just really get wrong. And I've seen people get themselves hundreds of thousands of dollars in debt because of very simple mistakes, like not setting aside money for taxes, or like, just something that's in retrospect incredibly simple, but you get in a lot of trouble that way, right? And I've personally been in situations where I just wasn't looking at cash flow close enough, and then you end up with, hey, we spent way more expenses this month. You blew a bunch on ads, and then you have all these employees, and you're like, where am we getting the money to pay for all the employees now? We just blew all this freaking money on ads that I wasn't paying close enough attention to, or something like that, right? So it's such an important skill set of an entrepreneur to understand the numbers. Even if you're not a numbers type of person, you need to, at the very least, understand, am I profitable? Is this sustainable? Or are we going to be at least, like, is it possible to get to a place that's sustainable if we, shift a few things around? And then do we have enough cash in the bank to pay our expenses over the months that are coming up, or are we getting close, right? You need to know very accurately if it's getting close. You need to know very accurately how much time you have to, get that increase in revenue coming in to make sure your expenses are all covered, right? Or else you could end up in a situation where you have 2 bad months in a row and you're going bankrupt.
Yeah. So in simple terms, measuring and tracking is extremely important. So, man,
absolutely.
Yeah. So yeah, man. I mean, I really enjoyed this conversation, man. Thank you very much for your time. So, like, if I'm someone who is interested in like starting an Amazon business, or wants to know more, or I don't know, like I just really connected with you, and I really I just liked everything that you're all about. Where can I find more of you, man?
Probably the best place would be on Instagram. I am Danny Carlson on Instagram, or you can check out the website. It has just like more about me and programs and things like that. It's dannycarlson.co.
Awesome, man. So we'll make sure to put all your information on wherever this appears. And it was great talking to you, man. Thank you very much. And I'll see you later, man. Unless you have anything else you want to say.
No, thanks for having me on, man. I really enjoyed the conversation, and I love how honest and candid you are with your audience. You're doing a great service to all the men who listen to this podcast, because there's a shortage, I think, of really truly well-grounded young men like yourself who are putting out good content. I'm glad there's someone like you who's doing that, and not just flashing Lambos in front of people's faces and trying to lead people down an empty path. So doing great work, Alex.
Thank you, man. See you later. Talk to you soon. Bye-bye.
Cheers.
Thank you for watching the Gentleman's Success, Happiness, and Fulfillment Talk podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, share it with one friend, leave us a comment, and let us know. 99% of people never leave a review or comment, but we love and are very thankful with the 1% of you who do. If there's something or someone you want to see on this podcast, send me a message on Instagram at Alex_Ramirez1020 and let me know. As a thank you for that, I have an amazing surprise for each and every one of you who does take the time to leave us a comment or review on YouTube or one of the major podcasting platforms